Hello everyone and welcome to the latest episode of Sean's Movie Crusades. My name is Sean Waskrug and I'm here to review all the latest films in theaters and streaming, as well as anything that you guys recommend, whether it be recent films or old school movies. Before we get to today's review, don't forget to hit that like, share, and subscribe button to the channel so that way you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos that pop up on YouTube. And also don't forget to follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Now today we are going to be reviewing the remake, or the readaptation, of the 2004 Hellboy. First things first, I actually quite enjoyed the first two Hellboy films that were done with Guillermo. I'm going to butcher his name. Guillermo del Toro. I know I said his first name wrong. I liked what he did with the practical effects, and I thought they had, for the most part, good casting, except for like the FBI agents or the Bureau of Paranormal and Research Defense or something like that is what they're called. The agents in that weren't that great, but I liked Ron Perlman as Hellboy. I thought he did a very good job. I love John Hurt who played his father, Professor Bloom. Then Doug Jones as Ape Sapien. Selma Blair was fine in the film as well. The sequel, I don't remember a lot of the sequel now that I come to think of it, but I remember I was fine with it. I mean, I didn't hate it by any means. I don't think it deserved to be the end of the franchise. I think they should have given Del Toro his third film that he wanted, but the problem is that the movie didn't make enough money. So they decided that they were going to come back and redo it with a new director, new Hellboy, and they were supposed to be more closer to the comic book than what Del Toro's version was. But with this time, instead of Ron Perlman as Hellboy, it was going to be David Harbaugh. Most people might know him from, obviously, Stranger Things. He's a great character actor. He's popped in he's in a lot of films sprinkled throughout a lot of movies. He's just one of those guys that's like, oh, I know that guy. But then obviously Stranger Things is the thing that has really kind of brought him to the forefront. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, this is probably his first lead role in a film. So it was kind of a big swing for Harbaugh to kind of come out and take this. I want to say he's an iconic character, but the Hellboy franchise wasn't necessarily big enough for him to be an iconic character. But when everyone thinks Hellboy, they immediately think of Ron Perlman. So for Harbaugh to take over this role was a huge task for him, because he's constantly going to be judged based on Ron Perlman's performance. But yeah, so I mean, when the first trailer came out, I was like, it looks okay. I'm not particularly excited to see it, but I want to see how Harbaugh does in the role. Then they came out with the second trailer, which had a little more action, a little more story base to it, and I actually got generally excited to see this movie. So yeah, I was really ready to go see this. I was hoping Harbaugh was going to knock it out of the park. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into the review and see what I thought about it. For people who don't know Hellboy, it's a comic book, but basically it follows the story of this demon that came out of hell, and basically the initial beginning of it, and they explain this in the movie, and this is also explained in the beginning of the original Hellboy in 2004, is we go back to World War II time, and the Nazis are trying to open this portal to hell with Rasputin. And basically, the BPRD, which stands for the Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense, I believe is how they say it. I could be wrong on that. They're coming there to try and stop whatever they're trying to bring out of hell and kill it. But what comes out of hell is a baby Hellboy. And Professor Bloom, who in the original was played by John Hurt, and in this one is played by Ian McShane, instead of killing Hellboy, he decides, I'm going to take this demonic, devil-looking creature, and I'm going to make him good. And so he basically raises him as like his son, and then him, as well as the BPRD, basically start using Hellboy to help them take on monsters and paranormal creatures. And so that's kind of like the general basis of Hellboy. Now with this particular movie, you have basically that kind of same introduction to Hellboy, but it's not in the beginning of the film. It's kind of nor the second half, not the second half, but kind of the first half of the film, but more towards the middle. But basically there is a witch, or who's called Nemu. I'm gonna find the name real quick. Yeah, Nemu, or the Blood Queen, and she's from all the way back in King Arthur times. And basically, King Arthur with Excalibur strikes her down and cuts her into a bunch of pieces and separates her from across the country because she can't die. And so the only way to defeat her is to separate her into a bunch of pieces and scatter her around. And so basically, and then King Arthur and his knights go and separate her, and then we go to present day, and basically there is a creature finding her pieces and putting her back together, and then it's up to Hellboy to basically stop her. And that's as basic as I'll go with it, because I could go into a lot more detail, but then that goes into spoiler territory, so I'm going to stop right there. But that's the general plot of Hellboy. What works for Hellboy? First off, Harbour looks great as Hellboy. I actually think that he looks better than Ron Perlman did in the original Hellboy. Ron Perlman does a great job performing Hellboy, but you could clearly tell his suit looked fake. You could tell he was in a big kind of red foamed suit. Like it really looked not off-putting, but you could just kind of tell. Okay, he's wearing an inflatable suit. Well, it wasn't inflatable, but you know what I'm talking about. You could clearly tell the suit looked fake. 100% Harbour did not get in shape for this role because Hellboy's ripped in this film, but over the course of 15 years, technology has gotten better, and the Hellboy of this time around, his suit looks more realistic. The muscles look more practical in a way, to the point where Harbour looks more like a realistic version of Hellboy than Ron Perlman's did. Harbour does his best to fully embody the role of Hellboy, and his performance and Perlman's are two separate different kind of characters. And I'll get a little bit more into that a little bit later. So if you're looking for, if you're wondering, is Harbour doing a carbon copy performance of Ron Perlman? The answer is no. He's kind of doing his own thing with it. Whether or not you will like that or not is entirely up to you, but he's kind of walking that thin line between being Perlman and then just like kind of respecting Perlman but doing his own thing. Sasha Lane, I think she does a decent job as Alice, who's basically kind of the sidekick to Hellboy in the film. She basically has the ability to speak with spirits, and she has a very unique way of letting the spirits talk through her. That's all I'm going to say about that. But she's definitely the most likable character in the film overall. She's the one character throughout where I didn't necessarily find her negative. Is she a little stale on some of the lines she delivers? Yes. But I think overall through the whole film, she's the one character or performance where I was like, you know what, I actually like her character, and I wish I got more of her in the film than what we actually got. Another thing, the practical effects, which is what Del Toro is the master at, and that's what was really great about the original Hellboy, was that he did a really good job of mixing practical effects with the CGI. They do have practical effects in the film. Two particular characters, Baba Yaga and Garagach, are basically the two practical effect characters outside of Hellboy, that is. And they look great for the most part. Garagach, there are moments where you could tell he kind of looks like a puppet. But for the most part, he actually looks really great. And Baba Yaga looks fantastic in the practical effects that she is in. And every scene that she is in, she looks with great detail, disgusting and disturbing. And her actual scenes with Hellboy to me, are some of the best in the actual film, and I love the way she looks in terms of style. They really went all in on the practical effects for her. They don't reach Del Toro's levels, though. So for people who are expecting it to, even though there's a 15-year difference between Del Toro and this film, they don't quite reach Del Toro's level of practical effects, but at least they are doing some of it in the film instead of it just being 100% CGI. But yeah, that's all that works with this film. So let's go ahead and dive into the long list of what does not work in this film. And if that wasn't a tip-off to you guys right from the get-go, I'm just going to go ahead and come out and say it. This movie is just plain awful. It's so bad. It's so bad. Yeah, it's so bad. What's sad about it is that I figured out during the second line of the film, the second sentence that was spoken in the film, they say it with such a way that I was like, oh crap, this isn't gonna be good. Because if they let that delivery of that line go through to the final cut, then the rest of the movie was not gonna probably be as good either. And I haven't figured out that a movie was gonna be this bad this early since I saw Baywatch with The Rock. And that took me until it got to the title card, where I was like, oh god, this movie's going to be horrible. But yeah, this movie is not good at all. There were people that walked out halfway through this movie and never came back. And I personally have never walked out of a movie before because I'm that type of person that is like, I have to sit, no matter how much I hate the movie, I gotta sit and just kind of power through it. But damn, I almost wanted to walk out at one point. And the main reason why it's so awful is the script, and the dialogue, and just the direction overall. It's directed by Neil Marshall. The guy either thought everything that Andrew Cosby, who wrote the script, wrote was fantastic, or he just didn't care. Almost like Michael Bay level of bad dialogue, to the point where it's just like, dude, are you even paying attention to the movie you're filming? Because this is horribly delivered dialogue. You could have rewrote this. You could have helped Cosby write a better script, because the dialogue is atrocious. And that's what hinders the movie most. It's not the other stuff that I'm going to go over. This is first and foremost what makes the movie so bad, is the dialogue is horrific throughout the entire film. The movie itself comes off, especially the first half of the film, as just a complete exposition dump. Almost as bad as The Crimes of Grindelwald, where they just keep talking and talking and talking about stuff that you have no idea what they're talking about or what any of the stuff even means. So unless you are a fan of Hellboy, and I'm not talking about the movies, I'm talking about the comic book series. If you are a fan of the Hellboy comic book series, you will probably understand what they're talking about 90% of the time in this movie. If you are not, or you have not watched the Hellboy movies, you're just going to have to sit there and go and just kind of take it and just be confused and lost with the rest of us, because they are just talking and talking. You're just like, I have no idea what you guys are talking about, so okay, I will just go along with this, but I'm lost with all the jargon and the stuff that you are talking about in this film, because I'm not following any of it, and it gets rather tedious and tiring after a while. And it's mostly done by Ian McShane. He, for the most part, is the exposition dump person in the film. Mila Jovovich, she has a ton of exposition dump as well, but it's mainly Ian McShane, because he does narration in the film, and he's the one who says the second line of the movie that made me go, oh crap, this is going to be awful. Hellboy, the performance of Hellboy, and I really don't want to blame David Harbour for this, because like I said, this is his first leading role, and he's going to do probably whatever the director says, and he's going to deliver the script as powerful as he can, but he's all over the place in this movie. With a better script and a better director, I feel like he could really make Hellboy his own and do a great job. but his moods change between a stoner, which he does not smoke at all in the movie, but damn, his delivery of his lines come off almost like the dude from The Big Lebowski at certain points. From that to just being a crybaby, whiny child who is constantly told, stop being a whiny bitch throughout the entire film, but yet he still keeps being a whiny bitch, to being just a moody teenager. Now, that part I'll allow, because if I remember from the original Hellboy movie, even though Ron Perlman's an old guy in real life, the character of Hellboy was basically a adolescent teenager. I want to say in this film, there is one line that makes me think that Hellboy is like between 10 and 15 years old in this movie, because there's a line where he says, on my 10th birthday, you did this, which is confusing because what he just described was something that happened earlier in the film, but I don't think that it was his birthday, so it was a little bit confusing, but he's clearly either between 10 and probably 16 years old in the film, and he acts like it. But he's all over the place in terms of his performance, and I said, there's times where he's in a calm talk, and then he just starts raising and going and crazy yelling to an 11. And it is just a jarring, jerk reaction of a performance that it just does not work overall. I commend Harbaugh for trying his best with the script that he had, and I'm sure he was doing everything the director told him to do, but the Hellboy performance is not good. And like I said, I don't blame Harbaugh for that. I blame the director and the script for him having to perform those kinds of reactions. They could have calmed down and said, hey, stop doing this so whiny, or hey, you need to show a little bit more oomph because you're acting kind of like you're stoned. They don't. They just kind of just let him do whatever, and they don't reel him in, and he's just all over the place when he performs his lines. Ian McShane, while a great actor, and I think he's a fantastic actor overall, he just does not work in this film. One of the strongest points of the original Hellboy was that, and even though it wasn't that much in the film, they were able to grab it quite quickly, was the father-son relationship between Ron Perlman and John Hurt, to the point when something happens to John Hurt's character in the original film, you feel the pain and the anguish and the sadness in Ron Perlman. Now, it's not like a horrible disappointment, like crying or anything like that, but you feel the love between those two in the first film, because they seem to have a loving father-son relationship, even though the father, or John Hurt, has to be stern. You felt that. In this film, you don't feel that at all. McShane calls Hellboy his son in the movie, and Harbaugh calls McShane dad in the movie. That's the farthest it goes to feeling like a father-son relationship. They come off looking incredibly strained throughout. They come off almost to the point where, and this could just be the moody teenager part where it's like, Dad, just, you're not cool, you're, blah, 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 blah. But McShane also kind of just a dick to Hellboy throughout the entire film. He's loving on one hand, and then he's just telling him to stop being a whiny bitch the next line later. And Harbaugh just kind of is the moody teenager who just doesn't want to pay attention to what he's saying. And the relationship between them is just not there. So all their lines, or all their scenes together, the chemistry does not work. And it just feels like two guys just talking back and forth to each other, instead of it feeling like a father-son relationship. And so McShane just does not work well in the role. And like I said, I don't necessarily think that might be McShane's fault. That could, once again, go back to the dialogue and the script of the film. But the way he delivers the lines, it's just, there's really no love or care to the character towards Hellboy. At least it doesn't feel like it. It's more like if he was like the older brother or best friend of Hellboy, I could probably make it pass. But him being the father, it doesn't work right, and the dialogue, their scenes are just don't work together, and they're just very, I don't want to say crude, because that comes off the wrong way I want to say it, but it just sounds like, it's like two people who just can't get along or be in the same room long enough to show any emotion towards one another. The only person, or before I get to that, Daniel Dae Kim, he basically plays the the one of the agents that is actually partnered up with Hellboy, he really isn't given much of anything to do except just be a dick. And his dialogue is just as bad as well, to the point where he will just be silent and he'll just say this horrible dialogue, and then you're just supposed to let it go, and then it goes to the next scene, and it's just it's cringeworthy bad, and a lot of that is the jokes. They don't land at all. I can see that they were trying to be funny at certain points, and it's almost like one of those where it's like they say a line, and it's almost like they're waiting for the laugh, but the laugh doesn't come. So it lingers on their lines a little too long. There was not a single part of this film that I chuckled or laughed at. Because either A, any remotely funny line that's in the film was in the trailer, or B, it just wasn't funny. Maybe the only funny moment that I actually found amusing was in the first post-credit scene, because there are two. One in the middle, and then one at the very end. The end of the first one, I maybe got a slight chuckle out of it. The rest of the film is just not funny. And that's what sucks, is that they're trying to be funny, but the comedy fails miserably in this film. Whether it's the delivery of the actors, or like I said, the dialogue and the script, none of it works in this movie. And Daniel Day Kim is just wasted in the role. And he's really just given nothing to do except just play an asshole agent. The only person that seems to actually know what movie they're in is Mila Jovovich, who plays Nemu the Blood Queen. But she's used to being in bad movies, so she's just kind of going through the motions. I mean, she's doing her best, but I mean, she's not a great actress. And she's cheesing up the villain role as best she can. So it's like, if you're a fan of Mila, whether it be the Resident Evil series or whatever else she's in, if you're a fan of her performances, you probably will like her in this. If you're not a fan of her, this isn't going to change your opinion. I mean, except for the fact that I could tell that she's actually legitimately trying to perform this character of Nemu. But it's just, the rest of the movie's not working around her, so therefore her performance just comes off just different from the rest, because she's actually trying to put some serious effort into the performance, but it doesn't seem like anyone else is, and so it just looks weird when she's doing her performance overall. That's all I'm going to go to about the performances. I think I hit the performance aspect pretty hard right there. Let's go to the other parts of the film that does not work. For the love of God, stop trying to make King Arthur a thing. If you're not doing a King Arthur movie where it's about King Arthur, stop trying to force a King Arthur subplot into the films. It does not work with Transformers The Last Knight. It does not work here in Hellboy. The reasons for King Arthur in this film, and the stuff that happens further in the film that's supposed to connect King Arthur, is just utterly ridiculous. It makes no sense, and then they don't explain it to make sense. So please, stop trying to make King Arthur a thing in movies that have nothing to do about King Arthur. It's starting to become a ridiculous trope. I mean, I get that it's only been 2 movies, but it's 2 bad movies that have tried to do it, to the point where it's starting to become an eyesore when anyone brings up King Arthur. The blood and the gore in the film, which is something really different compared to the original film. There's a lot of blood and violent gore in this movie. While it's nice to a point, because it's like, alright, it's an R rating, they're really going for it, it also tends to go way overboard, to the point where it just seems over the top, where instead of it just being shocking and gruesome, it's like, yeah, I didn't want to see that, or I don't think they needed to do that. It's just them trying to be over the top gory, just to go over the top gory, instead of it actually having any purpose to the film at all. And it's just more or less like, let's slice this person this way because it looks cool, instead of it actually having any substance in the film, especially in the third act. They tend to go way, way, way overboard with the actual blood and gore, to the point where it just starts becoming kind of distracting to the film itself. The CGI fights, or the CG in general, are also not pretty. There are certain sections of the film where things look nice, where it's like, oh, that actually looks good. and then there are parts where it just looks downright bad. For anyone who has seen the second trailer, the scene where Hellboy is battling the giants, or giant... Well, no, it is giants. It's plural. He's battling giants. It is awful. Like, horribly bad, cheap CGI. To the point where there's one part where Hellboy is running away from a giant, and you can literally tell that he's on a treadmill, running in place, and the CG is moving behind him. It is awful, to the point where I go, oh, damn, don't tell me they just put that in that film. Pretty much anytime Hellboy runs in this particular battle scene, it looks fake as hell. The giants don't look that great. But it almost looked like they kind of ran out of money, and they just kind of had to put those scenes together because they are not crisp, and they look very poorly designed. The third act CG looks really nice for the most part. It almost felt like they put all their money into that one, and then just kind of like, we need to have another fight scene. Let's throw these giants ones in, but they don't have enough money to do it, so we're just going to kind of do the best we can, and it just looks really, really bad. But yeah, so that's kind of there's a lot more, but that's all I'm going to touch here on the what does not work. So let's go ahead and roll that into the overall thoughts. This is easily, as of right now, the worst movie I have seen in theaters this year. It's not the worst movie of the year, that still goes to Polar on Netflix, but this movie is the worst movie that I have paid to see in a theater this year. And you guys all, if you guys follow my reviews, you guys know how much I hated Cold Pursuit, and I would prefer Cold Pursuit over this movie any day of the week. So I can't recommend this movie. I urge you not to see the movie, which sucks because I wanted David Harbour to do really great and for this to kind of be like a breakthrough role for him, but it's just not there. So if you guys are trying to decide on whether or not to see Hellboy, instead of wasting your money and going out to the theater to see this, just go to Redbox or Netflix or sit at home and just watch the original 2 Hellboy films done by Del Toro, because you're going to get more enjoyment out of that than watching this. Unless you like going to see bad films and just laugh at how bad they are, because that's what you're going to do if you see this film. So that's kind of my overall thought process of it. So because of that, and because of how bad this movie was, my top 10 movies of 2009 has not changed. So if you guys watched the last episode, it's the same top 10. If you guys did not see the last review, which was Pet Sematary, here's the current top 10 movies of 2009, in my opinion, so far. Number 1 goes to Us. Number 2 goes to Shazam. 3 goes to Fighting With My Family. 4 is How to Train Your Dragon 3, The Hidden World. 5 is The Lego Movie 2, the second part. 6 goes to Happy Death Day to You. 7, The Upside. 8, Captain Marvel. 9, Alita Battle Angel. And 10 going to Pet Sematary. But yeah, that's everything for the most part. Next week, we've got The Curse of La Llorona coming out. And then obviously the next week after that, we've got Avengers Endgame, which I got my tickets already. I'm so excited. I'm going to probably see that movie twice opening weekend. I cannot explain how excited I am for that. But also, I will be posting a video ranking all the MCU movies in order from best to worst. So be on the lookout for that video. It's probably going to come out the week of Endgame, if not a couple days before Endgame comes out. So I mean, that's still about 2 weeks away. So be on the lookout for that. And and like I said, Curse of La Llorona next week. So until next, I'm all over the place right now. Sorry. If you guys like the review, go ahead and hit the like button. If you guys felt like this review was worth sharing, go ahead and hit that share button. But most importantly, don't forget to hit that subscribe button to the channel so that way you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos. And until next time, if in case I don't see you, good morning, good afternoon, and good night, Movie Crusaders.